Good morning and a warm welcome to all of you who've already joined the webinar. I'm still seeing more people join here. We'll give them a few minutes, but in the meantime, let's get started with the agenda for today. So firstly, welcome again to this session, Increasing the Efficiency of Agile Transformation, brought to you by Sufkanban and Digite. So this is what we will cover. We'll start with a few introductions. I'll give you a quick overview of Digite and Sufkanban for those of you who may not know us very much. And then we will go on to the main conversation today with our guest speaker, Masa Meda, Increasing the Efficiency of Agile Transformations. And we will do the Q&A slightly differently. I will explain that in a minute. What we will do is, of course, we will record the conversation and we will make the recording available to you at the end of today's session. Typically, we take questions using the questions box that you should see on your screens on the right side. But since this is a more of an interactive conversation, we would want to actually make it interactive. So if you have a question, if you just raise your hand, there is a little hand icon that you can use to draw attention to us. Or even if you type in a question, we can still get you live on the webinar and you can ask your question on the mic. If you prefer not to do that, you can just go ahead and type in the question. And either way, we will try and take it up either during the session itself or certainly towards the end of the session after we finish the main part of the conversation. So with that, let me introduce our guest speaker, Masa Meda, Senior Agile Coach at UST Global. My name is Mahesh Singh. I'm co-founder and currently run marketing at Digite. A little bit more about Masa. I have known Masa now for nearly, I would say 10, 12 years. I thought it was longer than that. Masa was probably the first person I ran into here in the Bay Area when we got together with the Lean Kanban University folks. He was one of the co-creators of the original organization that ultimately became the Lean Kanban University and is still known as the Kanban University. He was running the local Lean Coffee chapter here in the Bay Area. And that's when we met him for the first time. And since then, we've been close friends. And he's been an awesome friend to Digite, a great thought leader, and a great, just a great personality. And those of you who also know him already would know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who may not know him as much, Masa has worked across the industry across multiple roles. So he's currently Senior Agile Coach with UST Global, which is a very large consulting organization, a global consulting organization, and is currently part of a team that is working with one of the largest financial institutions worldwide, headquartered out of the East Coast here. He is the founder and principal of Value Nova, which has been an international consulting business focused on, again, enterprise agility, implementing a variety of lean and agile initiatives in organizations worldwide. He's been a steward with Xscale. For those of you who may not be familiar with Xscale, Xscale is a sort of a new framework that's coming up that focuses on descaling rather than scaling agile, and has a very interesting philosophy and a thought process behind how do you really make organizations agile. And he's been a engineering and product leader, throughout his career. He's co-founded 5 startups. I don't know if anybody has done that many startups. Masa, we'll talk about that in a bit. But he also was an R&D at Apple, and of course, he's been a frequent speaker at international conferences, including in India, and has many friends around the world who know him from there. Before I hand over the session to Masa and before we get into a conversation here, just a quick word about Digite. So Digite is a product company. We've been a pioneer in web-based collaborative products for predominantly software and IT teams, but also for a variety of other business functions in the last several years. We are headquartered here in Cupertino, California, which is where I'm based, but we have offices in North America, Europe, and in India. Our customers are worldwide, and we have nearly a million users of our products across the product spectrum that we have. Swift Kanban, Swift Enterprise, Swifties are our flagship products. In the context of the session today and many of these sessions that we do, just a quick introduction to what do we cover. So we certainly, like I said just now, provide the coverage to IT and software teams, but certainly our products are being used in a variety of different business functions and in general business business agility initiatives as well. And we support all of the typical agile frameworks that most organizations implement. We have a very powerful offering in terms of lean and visual portfolio management, which is becoming a big part of scaling agile. And therefore we provide again support to scaling methods like Kanban or scaled agile framework, etc., with some very powerful capabilities around visualizing and managing the portfolios, doing the risk analysis or the opportunity analysis that you need to do in order to make sure that you're working on the right initiatives at the right time, and then providing a whole range of metrics and measures, including statistical analysis that helps your teams become far more predictable and are able to set realistic expectations with the customers through very data-driven conversations. So that's really what we are very good at. And we support the end-to-end value stream visualization and measurement. So we provide a lot of flow analytics that again help teams understand how their own performance is in relation to the overall organization and how the overall organization is doing in terms of overall value stream management. Again, just a quick slide here on various integrations that we do. We understand that most organizations have a variety of tools and we integrate with several of them. And just a last slide here on some of our key customers, and you'll see that there's some well-known names here as well as perhaps some not so well-known names. And our customers tend to be from 10, 20 people teams to tens of thousands of users. So we understand enterprise level scalability, performance, and security type of requirements very well. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Masa in just a second. But before that, we wanted to quickly understand what you represent in your organizations. What are your functions? So if you could take a second to respond to the poll, it'll give Masa and me a little bit of an idea of who our audience today is, and hopefully make it a little more tailored conversation. And while the poll is coming up, Masa, let me introduce you again to the audience and a warm welcome. Thank you for joining this conversation today.
Okay, sorry, I was on mute also.
I thought
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mahesh, for the introduction, and thank you to Digite for the opportunity to be able to talk to such a fabulous audience. I'm just really looking forward to this conversation.
All right, let's take a look at the poll. I think quite a few people have already voted, so let's take a look and see what we see. So,
oops.
Great. So we have quite a bit of people from leadership and the main functions that we typically see, but also a number of consulting and coaching folks as well here. You said, oops, why did you say that?
Oh, because what I can see on the screen is just, there is, we cannot see the actual numbers here.
What you are see it. Okay, all right, so let me read it out. Leadership, 22%. Project, product, software engineering, management, 43%. IT, application development, and infrastructure, 13%. No business functions represented, which is a bit of a surprise. But consultant and coach is 22%.
Okay.
Yeah, that's too bad that you're not able to see it. I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
All right. So no worries. We will deal with this as we go. We always have technology issues to take care of once in a while. Okay, so with that, Masa, again, a warm welcome. And I am looking forward to your conversation because one of the things that we hear a lot of criticism of is how enterprises want to go agile, right? And the typical approach with especially large organizations, large financial organizations as well, is you do a 2-day training on Scrum and Kanban and everybody's agile. right? That's the way that large companies typically approach this. Maybe, and maybe this is just a myth propagated by various people. So I'm really interested to know from a real insider's point of view, your lessons from the recent journey that you've been on, as well as, of course, the overall uh, sort of prospect of, or rather, overall task of agile transformations and leading them. So let's begin. So firstly, I was intrigued by your topic. You said increasing the efficiency of agile transformation. So you kind of emphasize efficiency rather than productivity or effectiveness. Why is that?
Okay, well, I have been very vocal for many years about organizations, enterprises. They should stop using productivity as a measure, and they should focus on efficiency. And it's very simple, the reason why. When we're talking about productivity, what we're focusing on is, let's see how much stuff we can get done, right? How much work, how many features, whatever it is. Let's see how much output we can get in a set amount of time. When we're talking about efficiency, we also want to measure what it is that we're getting out the door, but we are paying particular attention to waste, meaning we want to be able to, yes, produce a lot, get it out there, but with minimum waste. We want to make sure that there's an economic element behind it, in which the better it is, the way in which we can produce that value, then the economy behind that production is going to be better. When we talk about productivity, we're not really paying attention to waste. And that's huge, because in the end, it doesn't matter if you're a for-profit or non-for-profit business, you have to be careful with your economy. So you have to be sensitive towards that. Therefore, efficiency is definitely a better measure. Efficacy, also, yes, is something that obviously is important, because we want to know basically how much bang for the buck our customers are getting. So yes, we want to bring something to market, but there is also something that is going to satisfy the customer and their wants and their needs much better.
Agreed. So what you're really referring to is the efficiency of the outcomes that the agile transformation produces, not the efficiency of the project itself.
So it will be the efficacy of the outcome, and then the efficiency of how do we generate that we reach that outcome.
Got it. Okay. And folks, again, if you have questions that you want to ask, we can take them up right away. There is a question here. Is there a screen sharing problem? No, there is. We are not sharing any screens right now, but we should be able to see both of us on camera. So if you can hear Masa, that's great, but hopefully you can also see him. All right. Hopefully, I think sometimes the camera window gets hidden behind the main window. If you just look for the other camera window, you should hopefully be able to see us. Okay. In the meantime, let's continue. So given what you just said, Masa, so what are some of the key elements to increase the efficiency during an agile transformation? What are the factors that you take into account?
Yeah, well, something that I see that happens way too often when we're talking about transformations is, okay, let's get into the method. It doesn't matter what it is, Kanban, Scrum, FDD, whatever it is. It's okay, what do I do? And we immediately go to, okay, let's start getting together periodically. Let's make sure that we have a set target in a short period of time, get it done and put it out there. And we start just getting into the mechanics. When in reality, what we should be doing is making sure, first of all, that we're in alignment. And the alignment is not only at the operational level. It's not just the teams or the people involved in the project. It's actually at organizational level. So how do we ensure that there is alignment between the decision makers and those who are going to actually be building that product or service? If there is no alignment, then the decisions that are being made might not be at a par with what we want to generate. And a lot of transformations go directly into the mechanics. They think that agility is just this mechanical practice about, for example, daily meetings and 2-week or 3-week sprints and things like that, when in reality, it is something a lot bigger and a lot more complete. So what this means is that in order to get their alignment, there has to be understanding. And that has to be also at all levels of the organization. If everybody doesn't understand what agility really is about, then it's going to be difficult to get the alignment. And if there is no alignment and there's no understanding, then it's going to be difficult for us to determine what is in it for me. What benefit do we as a business get, as an organization, as a person? Because agility has that benefit. It's not only something that helps generate better products and services more efficiently if we do it right, but also we get a personal benefit. It's something that can help improve the quality of our work life and even the quality of our personal lives. Once we have all that, then the buying happens by itself. It's just a consequence of doing all that. So what that means is that we have to understand that it is really about mindset over methods. I will say that is the Agile value in the Agile manifesto that is not explicit. Mindset over methods. And of course, when we talk about the methods, we have to understand the weakness and the virtues that they have. It's not a good idea to be canonical or to be purist, to say, oh, we are a Scrum and we have a stamp of approval that we're Scrum, or we are Kanban, or we are whatever. No. You know what? This is a business. We want to be successful. Let's do what it takes to be successful. So it's a tool set. We can bring different tools in combination, put them into practice the way that works for us to be able to be efficient in generating the value that we want to generate. So what that means, obviously, is that there has to be that economic perspective, but also it is very important to make sure that we come with the right tools. There is one of the phrases that I used a lot by Agile coaches out there is, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So don't worry about the tool. Just let's just get together and get things like, yeah, of course, it is important to have that interaction. It's extremely important to have that interaction. But let me put it this way: I have to cut a very old dead redwood tree. Okay, I need to get it out of the way, or it's gonna fall and destroy my house, right? Okay, so you have two options. You can get a chainsaw or you can get a pocket knife. So now you tell me, is the tool important or not? So it's not about the tool, but counting with the right tools is definitely important.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you something about tool towards the end, but you kind of answered it partly, especially in the current times where you have teams distributed and working remote, etc. Probably tools play an even more important role, but we'll come to that later. But one thing, the way that you described it just now, in terms of getting alignment and getting a sort of solid foundation to start this exercise, it almost sounds to me like this kind of an exercise is always a top-down exercise. So that means that leadership in the organization has to be initially convinced that this is needed and this is required, or that they themselves initiate it to say that we need to be agile, or we need to have this change or transformation in the organization. So do you see that? Do you see it typically as a top-down approach?
No, not really, and that's very unfortunate. I mean, most transformations are bottom-up, and that's also because, again, it's the misconception that agility is a technical practice. Oh, that is something that the engineers do. The QA organization is involved in that, but we as management or leaders for that, all we need to do is buy into it. We just say, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, let's get the budget approved and go and do it. And from our side, it's business as usual. And it's really not. And I'm going to give you just a very simple example of this. I mean, by analogy. So currently, there's still a lot of companies out there that are working on their something waterfall style. I don't think that at the organization, the product and the service generation is on waterfall style, and the decision makers are thinking in a way that is not waterfall. So they are thinking and making decisions in a way that is in agreement with the way the value and service is being generated. It is the same in this case. I mean, we cannot say we're doing Agile, or we are in the agility journey and we're doing our stuff the Agile way, if we're thinking in a different way. So it is extremely important for decision makers to not just want to say, okay, it sounds good, and there it is. Or, okay, I read the Agile manifesto and I get it. Or somebody explained to me in 3 minutes what is a Scrum. And then I think that Agile is that. We need to really understand what it is, but on top of that, we need to really also absorb and apply agility at our level and what is applicable at our level. Because obviously, we're not going to have executives doing the sprints, for example. So what we have to understand is agility is not all about a Scrum. It's a lot more than that. And also there are different elements and different practices that are applicable at different layers of the organization. And yes, there are aspects that are applicable at all layers of the organization. So, the way I have always approached this is I begin at leadership level to start bringing that mindset and that understanding and that alignment. And then I start working with a lower layer and then work on them in parallel. I don't like beginning at the bottom, because again, what we are going to be generating comes from what this is requesting. So the business and the leadership layer is asking for something that is not in alignment, then we are off to a bad start.
Right, absolutely. The other aspect of it is, and this has been a discussion within Digite, in terms of where does it in the organization. One is the sort of top and bottom sort of vertical axis. The other is the horizontal axis. My belief is that most of the times organizations begin agile initiatives within their IT or tech organizations, and not so much the business organizations. And the focus on business agility increasingly over the last few years, I believe, supports that. That typically it has been a function of the IT or the software engineering organization in the company, and now people are looking to say, hey, we should be doing the same thing in business as well. So is that a correct assumption, or is that been your experience as well, that typically you're working more with the IT or technology organizations and not so much the business?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. I mean, you can see my smile. So I have been very fortunate that throughout my path as an enterprise coach, I have been able to work at organizations where I have been given the opportunity to bring agility way beyond the technical side. There are organizations where, for example, there was one of the largest telecoms in the planet. We started actually, and it's funny, something that you said at the beginning, that a 2-day Scrum training, because I got a phone call one day and say, hey, we want a Scrum training. We know that typically it's 2 days. How much do you charge for it? That's the way the conversation started. And I asked them, well, why do you want Scrum? Right. And the answer was not really an answer. So I asked the question again, which confused them. But I told them at that point, you're not telling me why you, as an organization, you need the Scrum. You're telling me that the Scrum because everybody's doing it and so on, but that's not really the reason. So they didn't have an answer, and I told them, I can help you figure out what is it that you really need and why. So long story short, we kicked off, with a few-week program just to get it started. I had the leadership layer with me, and I asked them to invite all the customers that I interacted with, because this was the systems department. So they brought 2 decision makers from each of the other departments I interacted with. By the end of day 2 of that induction, all the directors from the other departments, all of them, without exception, say, we want this. So basically what happened was an engagement that was supposed to start with the systems department, ended up covering auditing, process and projects, and it was like all across the board, customer care and so on, human resources. And I have done this with several other organizations. The last customer before, the work that I'm doing for this financial institution cover actually all of the 16 areas of this bank. And I was working directly with all of the VPs. And that actually brings a much better solution. So yes, it is definitely a good thing to be able to do this holistically. And by the way, in my experience, HR directors, or well, the HR decision makers, are the ones who more rapidly and more easily understand the essence of agility. And I guess because they have that human perspective. And agility is really about that human factor, about that mindset.
Culture and the mindset, exactly. Yeah. Okay, awesome. So, but you did say that you began with the IT organization, if I got you right, but very quickly it got across to the other side.
Yeah, because they are the ones who approached me. So obviously the contract is started there. Okay. But by the end of the second day, we have everybody else say, "Okay, me too." That's obviously, and when I asked them to invite all those decision makers, was not because I was in seek of more business. It was because I wanted to make sure that all the interfaces, everybody that they were going to be interacting with, they also had a minimum baseline understanding of what agility is about, so that the communication and collaboration between the system department and everybody else was going to be better. Obviously, the fact that they liked it enough to say, we see the value and we want it, I think that it speaks, by itself about the fact that agility is not a technical practice, even though it obviously started in software development.
Right. And the reason I'm focusing on this is because we, technology companies or product companies, we potentially, sort of live in a bubble. We look at the IT or the software or the high-tech portions of an organization, and that's the face we see a lot of times. But really, the way things have been evolving over the last decade and maybe longer, it is, I think, a CEO level, priority and initiative, and it is the CEO and the business leadership who should be sort of, leading this to say, hey, what are we doing about this? How are we being agile? How are we being responsive to the market? How are we transforming ourselves so that we are really able to deal with the sort of modern world much more effectively than we may have been doing historically. So it's always interesting to me to know what triggers it initially, and then who leads it, who builds it up, and who then engages with folks like yourselves, the experts, to help them go through the transition or the transformation.
Yeah. Well, one key element to the aspect is that to bring that the economic perspective, because obviously as a leader, it doesn't matter if I'm at C-level or VP level or executive director level and such. One of the most important elements in terms of the benefit that all those decision makers are seeking is a better economic outcome. And the economic perspective and the economic value of agility is something that has to be infused and become part of the DNA of the entire company. It doesn't matter if you are the most junior employee at the organization. You have to have an understanding about what is the economic value that agility brings to the table, because that way the decisions that I make, let's say I'm a tester. Well, if I generate tests that are going to improve the economy of what we are doing, of what we're generating, what we're delivering, then that's a good test. If it is a good test that is just a test just to do it, then why do it? It makes no sense. And that is key to the way we do, because efficiency is again is about waste. If I have two alternatives of how to write a piece of code, or how to determine a process for hiring a person, or two different flows for my my product portfolio, which one am I going to use? The one that is easiest, or the one that brings the best economics
Right.
behind it. The one that's going to make it easier for me to understand the process, what identify opportunities for improvement, go about taking care of those improvements, and so on, for the sake of improving the economic outcome. Always, the best economic decision is going to be the best decision. And that includes the human factor. If we do things that improve people's health, there's an improvement in the economics of the business behind that, because if they are in better health, they don't get sick as frequently.
Yeah.
They are more productive, and so on.
Absolutely. And that perspective is what gets leadership and business excited over sort of more technical or more mundane approaches to it. Great. I just want to again make sure that I see some people joining even now. I just want to let everyone know again that we are in conversation with Dr. Masa Maeda, who's been a I would say towering personality in the agile transformation world, and just a amazing person to work with and to know. I just want to encourage anybody else who's on the panel already, I mean on the webinar already, if you have questions based on what you're hearing, feel free to ask the questions and or raise your hand, and we will bring you on live to ask your question live on the mic. So anyway, so Masa, so let's continue. So we talked a lot about the sort of reasons to do it. What are some of the motivations? What are some of the measures that we want to, or the outcomes that we want to get based on the agile transformation activity? Let's look at what are some of the challenges that you see here. So what are some of the things that might impact a transformation effort or initiative negatively? What are some of the pitfalls?
Well, uh, I already say addressed a little bit of that. So again, the right mindset, is and the mindset is not just the Agile manifesto and saying this is it. There's a lot more behind that. We have to think, the lean way. We have to think at systems level, meaning we have to have a broader perspective. We all have different points of view. We have knowledge and experience, but we have to be humble enough to say what else, and then see in what way, if I could see the same thing from different perspectives, then I may stop seeing it in 2 dimensions, and I may be able to see it in 3 dimensions or beyond that, right? So a deep understanding of what agility really is about is very, very important. So that's one element. The other one is silos. It happens just way too often. It's just silly, how it is. Even within agility, I mean, we see people saying, okay, yeah, we are agile and we're bringing agility, but then say, okay, this is my team, or this is my organization, this is my project, and everything else is just noise in the system, and I'm going to ignore it. When it shouldn't be that way. Is how is everything is interconnected in the end. I mean, a healthy organization, a healthy business is an ecosystem. All the different parts interact with each other in one way or another, and they have to interact in a way that they all benefit each other. I'm not going to just use you and consume you to my benefit. In what way we both coexist and interact and help each other so that the entire business becomes successful. So when we see leaders interacting and thinking in a silo way, that way of thinking, and we know the culture of an organization is influenced primarily by by its leaders. But then that permeates down to the way middle management and then teams operate. And at the same time, if the teams are thinking and operating in a silo fashion, how can we help change that? So, the communication and collaboration has to be open. Another element that is very important is the way people are evaluated. If we are effectively moving towards agility in the way we do things, but we still evaluate people through a mechanism that is very individual based, I'm going to evaluate you for what you're doing instead of looking at the outcomes that the entire team or the entire project organization is doing. Then we're actually in contradiction with ourselves, because if we're going to evaluate Mahesh versus Masa, that can motivate actually to work in silos, because I want to do better than you because there's the same budget for the bonus, and I want to get more bonus than you. So it starts generating competition and bad behaviors that we don't want there to be there. So we need to change the way we evaluate people. So I would say that those are really important elements. Having the misunderstanding of what agility is, a silo way of thinking and operating, and also not having that mindset that goes, from agility to lean, to flow, to systems and ecosystems level. So, what I will invite, the audience to do is to, if you're not familiar with what systems thinking is, I totally invite you to want to explore it. It's fascinating, it's fun, it's challenging, and it's huge. So it's a never-ending exploration, but it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm going to sort of challenge you a little bit on this.
Okay.
It's the chicken and egg situation, right? So, like you said, if you have misconceptions about agility, you don't really understand it, then you are going to have some of these challenges. But how do you even get there, right? Because unless you get people to be collaborative, to be open-minded, etc., you are not going to open their minds about the environment and the culture that needs to be in place in order to implement Agile across the organization. So I see that as a almost like an organizational behavior, human behavior coaching, consulting challenge first before you get on to Agile principles.
Yes.
So, and there, related to this, there is a question that came in from Christine Sweet. Christine, if you'd like to speak on the mic, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and you can go ahead and ask your question. And if you are unable to do that, then we can certainly just read your question. So go ahead, you're on mic. Please go ahead and ask your question.
All right, great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks. This was unexpected. But I've had this question posed to me previously, if you're a worker bee and you're not in the position of leadership, but you see a need for your organization to be more agile and to adopt that agile mindset, how does that worker bee, or even like maybe even middle management, get that get leadership to buy in or even be open to the idea of the agile mindset?
Okay.
And Vasa, before you respond, Christine, would you mind giving us a little bit of your context? What's your role or organization that you work with?
I am, well, not in, I can do a little bit. I am a federal contractor, and the government is historically not all that agile. So we can.
Although you're surprised with some of them, but I agree with
especially
okay,
in some of the more traditional mission focused areas.
Okay, perfect, awesome question.
Yeah. So there's the challenge of that limited reach. So if I'm an individual contributor, or I'm a middle management, bringing agility up is obviously is a little bit hard. I mean, the easiest path is when you have somebody from the top bringing this, in one way or another. And you have a enterprise or a senior coach or something that helps. And also, as we know, in any kind of organization where you have an external element, even if I say the same thing that you said, just because I'm from the outside, they are more open to listening to what I say. You might say it more eloquently and actually better and deeper, and unfortunately that happens. But if you don't have that, benefit, then what you can do as an individual contributor is, okay, so we as a team, we're collaborating, we identify a need, and we can bring that up, for example, let's say during a retrospective. And we can say, we're seeing these behaviors, we're seeing these outcomes. What about doing this? What if we guys go ahead and try this out? And what that is going to do is the person who is managing that will be the Scrum Master, product owner, or manager, whoever that person is, might say, oh yeah, well, yeah, I mean, if things are not working, let's try it out and see what happens. So it's through the interaction that we have and then experimenting and seeing the outcome of that experiment that we can use as the mechanism to start introducing this mindset. So basically, we don't go explicitly to the mindset or something that's as theoretical. We do it through, empirically through the practical side. Management levels should be something similar. We can bring concerns of what's going on and then propose courses of action to then try them out. So that's one way to do it. Another one that is more effective is if we manage to have a sponsor whom we can talk to, at a personal level and say, hey, this is what's going on, and we are trying this, and I'm sure that if we go about doing this other, trying these other things out and so on. I've seen it, or I tried somewhere else, or a friend told me we should try, but I need your help to convince that upper layer. Then that also helps a lot. Those are channels through which that happen. Now, something that I have done, like for example, the organization that I'm working with right now, when I just got started, I got tremendous pushback. I mean, it was insane, the amount of pushback that I was getting. And my first impression was, well, they are against the transformation. They don't want to do this. But really what I did was take a risk. And I took an aggressive move to get their attention in terms of the need for us to release it and start looking into this. That made them uncomfortable, but that actually generated the opportunity to finally sit and talk, even though the intention of the meeting was to resolve that conflict. But it was then when I expressed to them the importance of at least giving this the benefit of the doubt, and that they are decision makers, they need to be involved. So they decided to give it the benefit of the doubt. And then once we started having conversations, I told them, guys, I really think that you're not against this. It's that you are so busy and you really want this to be successful, but you're so busy that you think that is something that has to wait for later. When in reality, this is something that is going to make it easier for you to be able to cope and to deal with the hardship that you're going through right now. So basically what I did was I managed to be able to have them give this an opportunity. But that opportunity included being able to have one-on-one conversations with them as leaders. And it was through those one-on-one conversations that I started bringing this to them. And the way to do it effectively was by adapting myself to their personality, to the way they think. So if you were to see me one-on-one with each one of these leaders, you will think this is a different masa, because the way I talk, my tone of voice, the speed at which I talk, the words that I use are in tune with the way they are. So one of them, for example, we start our one-on-one, hey man, how are you doing? Like, what's up? And with another one, hey, did you have your coffee yet? So it's just different the way, because if I get in tune, if I adjust my frequency to their frequency, they're going to be more open to listen to me and also understand how they operate. Some of them come immediately with questions, some of them come with concerns, some of them come asking for help. So I get to the meeting prepared for that. And then within that interaction, I start bringing in what way agility can help them, be it at mindset level, be it at action item level, and so on. And so basically what ended up happening with this organization is the beginning was awful, but now at some point it was just at this turning point, and this organization now is more mature, way more mature than other organizations in less than half the time that the other organizations have been going through transformation. And it was because of that emphasis on the leadership layer.
Awesome, awesome. Christine, I hope that answer helped. It certainly helped me. I would say one thing that, even though we might think that government is, especially the federal government might be a hard place to work in, and in all probability, it is harder than the rest of the world. But here in the Bay Area, which is full of startups and people wanting to move rapidly, the amount of challenges, the same kind of challenges that people have in terms of convincing management to do something new or different, it's not too different at all. And we were just discussing this the other day, that most people have a challenge managing upwards. All of us, we love to handle and manage our teams very well. We are very poor at handling our bosses and our leadership, because we are somehow in conflict with them, or we believe that we are in conflict with them because we don't believe that they will understand our ideas or our appreciate our contributions, or whatever be the sort of environment. Even in startups, this is exactly what happens. And so people have a challenge getting their ideas bought into. And I think the idea that Masa, you just gave, probably are the right ways to go. Really think in the shoes of put yourself in the shoes of your bosses and leaders, and see how they would think about it, and then try and emulate that language or stance or approach, or get somebody from outside who's an expert, and potentially they might be able to help shake things up a little. But great. Let me see that, Masa, before we move on to our next question. There is a question from Alfonso. Oh, I'm sorry, Christina. I hope that that was a good enough answer, and we'll move on to the next one. If there's anything as a follow-up, please type it in, and we'll get you back on the call. In the meantime, Alfonso, I'm going to unmute you, and you could go ahead and ask a question.
Hello, Masa. Good afternoon. How are you? My question is regarding the transformation. Taking into account that usually we focus on the transformation inside our own companies, but there's also a link with the way of working and the things we do with our customers. Okay, so what will be your recipe to handle a common situation we found that we propose an agile approach, an agile change in the way of working with the customer in order to give them the benefits of working this way, okay, and that's accepted by the customer. But then at the end of the day, after the time, some things that have been left and are not done because of a change that the agile approach has naturally given to the final deliverables, they say that, well, this was signed off in our initial contracts, okay, and you have to do this because it's something due, okay? It's like a technical debt, and go back to the, let's say, waterfall mindset approach. So this is what we signed. We need to have this because it was signed off. Removing that, the agile drives, considering that change is going to leave things park aside and bringing up new things. But at the end of the day, they require everything that was asked.
Yeah, this is typical when we're getting started, right? We're new to this. The customer is used to a different way of getting things done and delivered. So there are different ways in which you can approach this, but one of them is there's already a set contract. And what you can work out is to have an addendum to that contract where there's an understanding that a common agreement that we are going to do this based on highest value. What is it from what we need to deliver that is that which is more important, that brings the highest ROI to the customer, and indicate that we're going to have to make decisions along the way in which we're going to have to compromise one thing or another. One of them is we can deliver the whole thing, maybe good enough to some extent, but we don't know. I mean, there's always unknowns. Or we can deliver what we deliver with the right quality, which it may mean that we might not deliver everything, but that which is not going to be delivered on time is going to be the lowest value. And that is something that could deliver later on and indicate what are the pros and cons of each approach. And then, okay, now you decide. Now, if you decide for the former, what you have to understand is that then, after the deadline, after we deliver everything, we're going to have to most likely revisit a lot of that, and that is actually more costly. If we do it the other way, we have, and you can see historically, and there's a lot of cases that demonstrate it, that in there are instances in which that which is of lowest value ends up being identified as not really needed, or something as it is okay, it doesn't really affect at all if it is delivered later on. Right? The middle ground will be we begin by just focusing on delivering with the right quality, and then towards the end we can compromise and generate some technical debt towards the end in order to be able to finish what is in the contract, if you want to keep things just based on the contract without an addendum, which means we will have lower amount of technical debt, but still the quality of the delivery might not be that. And then understand that we're getting started. As we get better at this, we're going to get to the point in which we're going to be able to deliver everything with really good quality and probably even in less time. If this is the beginning, there's a compromise there. And you can also say, well, historically, what has happened? We go project after project. We say that we're going to finish, and typically we don't finish, right? We're always late, or there's all this chaos happening and so on. So if reality is that, then why not try something new that might work better? What do we have to lose? I mean, worst case scenario is the same as before. Better case scenario, then we have a better outcome. So you have to go through that conversation, but don't focus the conversation on the method. Focus the conversation on the economic benefit behind the different alternatives.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alfonso. So we are kind of coming to the bottom of the hour, Masa. So let's go through a couple of other questions that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
I'm going to combine two questions that I think are again important in the way that leadership or organizations approach them with. What is the one part is what is the typical scope of an agile transformation, and secondly, what is the best way to approach it? What are the best ways to put together a plan for such a transformation initiative? What are some of the steps that you would recommend?
Yeah, well, this actually goes in tune with when I was talking about silos. If we think that a transformation is the technical side of the business, then we are siloing the transformation. So a successful transformation is that in which agility actually is adopted and applied throughout the entire organization, or at least throughout the entire value chain. So let's say there's one line of business, and we apply agility throughout the entire line of business. From the moment the need is identified or the need is invented, we can generate needs to customers that needs that they didn't know they have. So from the moment the idea occurs, that's where the whole thing begins, right? So we have to make sure that everything that we do is in tune. And the way I put it is, I actually don't call it agility when I'm talking about that level. What I say is we are a quality-driven value generation organization for whatever it is. Now, how do you achieve that quality? Well, better flow, better all these elements. And how can we do it? Well, one way to do it is through agility. So now let's get into it. But it has to be the whole thing. I mean, if we only bring agility to the systems area, that's a sub-optimization. And let me tell you right now, if you do a sub-optimization, even if this actually was an improvement, that sub-optimization might worsen the economy of the entire value chain or the entire business. Therefore, it's better not to do agility at all, if that's going to be the case. So that's that's important. So you have to consider the entire organization or the entire value stream, and do it obviously at all levels of that organization.
Okay. And the second part, so what steps do you recommend in terms of teams or organizations approaching this?
Okay, so so let's say we're looking at the entire organization. First off, you have to make sure that your transformation is in tune with the vision. So we have to know as transformation agents what that organization's vision or that company's vision, because we have to make sure that while we shape up the strategy that we generate for the transformation is in tune with that vision. Otherwise, we are trying to walk a different trail, and that is going to result in chaos. We need to understand what is the need of that organization or that market, or what is the real need that is there. One way to do that, there is in Kanban, but even if you don't do Kanban, this is applicable. There is what is known as the static, S-T-A-T-I-K, static. And the first action within the static approach is to identify the need. What is that pain that is there? That we need to do that. So we are in alignment with the vision. We identify that need, and then we make sure that we start bringing this agility, as I mentioned earlier. The top-down parallel kind of approach. Right. And then as we go about doing that, make sure that we are focusing on continuous improvement. If we, for example, many organizations, when they do Scrum, which is what happens at most places than not, they just go about, okay, now we have our dailies, our sprints, our retros, like all that jazz. And say, okay, that's it. And that's what they do. And they do just that. And what that means is that if there was some benefit from doing that, what we did was just one step of improvement, right? We are here, we start doing the mechanics of Scrum, and once we're there, it goes flat again. We reach a plateau. And now what we have to do is pursue continuous improvement. So identify where waste is and in what ways we can get rid of that waste. So generating a culture of continuous improvement is absolutely important. Now, whether or not you have agile transformation coaches, if you don't have coaches, then the leadership layer has to take, as part of what they do, the role of a coach. They have to help, that transformation take place in terms of how do I guide you throughout how you can get to that goal. Obviously, it's difficult because sometimes they don't have enough time. So, having coaches there is good. Now, when you go about getting coaches, make sure to bring in the right coaches. Coaches that have that systems level approach, and not those who are focused just on one method or that thing that is just about the mechanics. So that's important. And what that means is that us as coaches, we have to remain humble all along. Nobody knows everything. There's always new stuff, and then we can go and explore and discover. And I mean, I have never done 2 transformations that are the same. All of them are very different because it adapts to the reality of that organization.
All right. So you there you have it roughly. I guess I kind of caught 5 things. So understanding the vision, identifying the need, getting leadership alignment, focusing on a continuous improvement mindset, and the fact that it can't be done in one step. And then, of course, using coaches or internal mentors effectively
And
to
staying
head.
humble. Yes.
And of course, staying humble. Awesome. So,
Oh,
folks, we are at the bottom of the hour. If there
you
are
froze
any
for yeah,
last-minute
some
questions,
reason.
are you able to hear me? Okay. Masa, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I was just saying that if there are
Yes.
any last questions, go ahead and ask them now, or we will reach out to you with a follow-up in terms of the recording of the session today. Masa, thank you so much for an amazing session as usual. We have done this very often and many times in the past, and it's always great to have you talking about your experience and your and sharing your knowledge. Looks like there are no other questions, so we will wind up here. Uh, Once again, thanks a lot for doing this. For folks on the webinar, thank you for staying with us all through the session. And we hope that you learned something and took something away which is useful and of value to your own organizational initiatives of agility. And if you have any need for help, reach out to Masa. I'm going to share my screen here so you can see our contact information. Let me. There you go. So if you need to reach out to Masa, please do that. If you need to reach us or understand what we offer in this field, you're free to go to our website or also to send us an email, and we'd be happy to connect with you. With that, I wish you all a great rest of the day, and we'll hopefully see you soon in one of the upcoming webinars. Masa, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks, Digite and Mahesh, for the opportunity. And I'm glad that this was a conversation that was, not focusing just on the technical aspects or something, more pinpointed. It was more like an open conversation. I think that it's important to have this kind of, discussions more often. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, and hopefully we'll get you back to more of these in the near future. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.